why it takes so long to record. Okay, so like I said, depending on which method you used, it really doesn't matter. Before you start to assemble, so right here, I've got my tetrahedrons, excuse me, with tissue on 2 of the 4 faces, or I can look at this one. When I look at this one, I've got 2 of the vertices with really long strings. Well, if the string is really, really long, it makes it difficult to assemble. And if there's no string or a short string, it makes it difficult to assemble. So before you even start setting up to assemble, what I would do is I would take these 2 long strings and I'm going to cut it so it's about 3 or 4 inches long. That's it. 3 or 4 inches long. I'm going to take this really, really, really long string and I'm going to cut it so it's 3 or 4 inches long. So I'm basically doing a quality control check of my tetrahedrons before I go assemble. So now I've got 2 of the vertices with a good 3 or 4 inch long string, but I've got 2 that have no string. So what I do is I just cut. I cut a dummy piece of string. That's what I call it. It's just the piece of string. It's about 6, 7 inches long, and I can physically tie it where there's no string right there. So I can take my dummy string and put it around it, and then I just tie it. So I go over, stuff the end through my loop, pull, make my loop, stuff my end through the loop, pull. And then I want to cut it. Whoop. Then I want to cut it so it's about 3 inches long. And then I'm going to tie another one to this end. So before you start to assemble, you want to make sure that all 4 of your vertices have a string that's not too long. It only wants to have 1 string, but they're about 3 or 4 inches. Okay. Now, when you assemble, I already said you do it in layers. So a 10 tetrahedral kite, the bottom layer has 6 tetrahedrons. So I just stack these so that my tissue is facing in the same direction. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to set them up like bowling pins. I'm going to put 1 here. The next 2, I put 1 there so that those vertices touch, and I put 1 here so that those vertices touch, and so will those. Then I have my last row. I'm going to put 1 there, 1 there, and 1 there. Okay, so that's how it's set up. That's the very first layer. Now, when I'm looking at it to assemble, like I said, wherever vertices touch. So right here, this one and this one touch. So I take these 2 strings from each of them and I just tie them together. I go over, under, and pull it tight. When you pull that tight, it's really going to connect that. And then you just make your loop, go over the loop, and pull again. And there's your knot. Okay. Tissue is in the, I don't like to move my setup. Don't start lifting them up because then this could get twisted. The tissue always has to face the same direction. So now I'll come over here to this one. And I got this string and this string because those 2 vertices touch. So same thing, over, under, pull. And this is the most important part. That's going to pull it tight, right together. Pulls those 2 right together. And then I have to do it again. Over, through the loop, pull it tight. So now I've got these 2 vertices connected. Now I need to connect these 2. And then I'm going to do this one to here, this one to here, this one to here, and then those 2 and those 2. So this middle point is going to have 3 vertices connected together. But again, when you start picking it up, it twists all over the place. But you always need the tissue paper facing the same direction. And whichever vertices touch, you tie those 2 3-inch strings together, which is why it's important to not have a really long string. It makes it more difficult. And you have to have a string. So if you do that quality control check before you start assembling and add strings where you need them and cut strings where they're too long, it's going to make assembly really, really easy, because the only strings sticking out are all going to be about 3 or 4 inches. And you know, wherever they touch, they get tied. Then what happens is you do the second layer. So this one is going to sit on top. And obviously, I'm going to tie these two. Now, when you go to tie these two, make sure your tissue is facing the same direction, but you can lay this down a little bit and just tie these tight. And then you stand it up. I tie those two, and I tie those two. And then you'll have another one that goes here, and you'll have another one that goes here. So your second layer is going to be 3. And then the top layer will be 1. Same thing. Wherever vertices touch, you tie those together. And it's very easy to do if you only have one string coming out of each of the vertices, and that string is about 3 to 4 inches long. And that's easy to do before you even go to assemble. All right. I'm going to shut off the phone. I'll stop the recording.